interested in photo ops.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Tuesday, June 26, 2018, and we've got so much to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions here. Quick little reminder that tomorrow in our third hour, Don Wiskin from Extendivite is going to be our guest, and on Thursday, we're going to have Kenneth Amaduri talking about AI and its implications and just where we are going with all of that. And another little reminder that Friday's show will be a replay because Claire and I need a little bit of a rest. So anyway, let's get right on into it. I'm going to take things a little bit out of my usual order because there's so much breaking news here. Obviously, it's all over the place. The Supreme Court upheld Trump's travel ban. It was a close vote, 5-4 decision, and basically affirmed the president's powers over matters of national security. There's already protesters outside the Supreme Court. They're screaming and crying that this is racist and, it's anti-Muslim, which is absolutely inaccurate, because if you are in one of these countries, which are havens of terror, and you try to come to the United States, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Zoroastrian, Scientology, you're not going to have an easy time getting into the country. It's not based on religion. It's based on national security, and the Supreme Court was correct to uphold that. Now, I want to spend a little time talking about Maxine Waters after that disgraceful display over the weekend. It is a symptom of what appears to be this growing tendency toward hysteria and even violence on the left here. Now, Trump has tweeted out to Maxine Waters, be careful what you wish for, which I don't know exactly what he means, if he's implying that Maxine Waters and the Democrats will be harassed back, but again, resorted to a personal insult by describing her as having an extraordinarily low IQ. And it may be true, but I think that's demeaning to the office of the presidency when he stoops to that kind of stuff. And I think a little more dignity is required here. But I understand why Trump is upset. Some of his people in the White House have already, felt this growing hostility in the streets of America. Now, obviously, Maxine Waters has drawn a huge amount of condemnation and criticism for this. Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona has introduced a measure calling on the Congresswoman to apologize to the White House for endangering their lives, sowing seeds of discord, resign from her position, and release a public statement saying harassment or violence isn't a form of protest. And he's absolutely correct about that. Violence is not covered by that First Amendment. It says freedom of speech, not freedom of baseball bats. Now, Judicial Watch has filed an ethics complaint with the House against Maxine Waters for inciting this violence. And Maxine, I guess, realizes she stepped over the line because she was on MSNBC and broke into tears about, oh, why are they turning on me? Focus on the children, focus on the children, focus, classic political stuff. By the way, did you know that Maxine Waters, she does own a small house in her district? She's hardly ever there. She's got a much larger, much nicer house in a better part of town. Little bit of hypocrisy on that one. Sheriff Clark is out there saying that victims of these Democratic mobs should take these threats seriously and be prepared to address and neutralize the threat. So maybe it's time to, get your pepper spray or whatever, because apparently these Democrats, they're getting serious about this stuff. Now, at a website owned by Univision Communications, there was an article titled, "This is Just the Beginning," written by Hamilton Nolan, that actually says Trump protesters should carry out domestic terror attacks, or rather protesters against Trump should carry out domestic terror attacks. And apparently a senior official at the Department of Homeland Security found a burned and decapitated animal carcass on the front porch of his D.C. area home. So the agency has sent a letter to all 250,000 employees saying there may be a heightened threat against DHS employees. Yes, it certainly does seem like it. All right, let's take a phone call here from James in South Carolina. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, I want to make a proposal to you. You're the only host that I know of, and I listen to a lot of them, that's technically competent to do this. And my idea is, I've had this a long time, with electronic billboards that you see.
Yes.
There are more and more, and a lot of the stuff on the media needs to be rebutted. And this is just one proposal. Everybody's talking about CNN line and all like this. Well, if you had a billboard directly across from CNN in Atlanta, or wherever it is, and you call these people out visually, in public, everybody can see a billboard. You don't have to click on it to see it. Now,
Yep.
What I'm going to suggest is, and I don't have a lot of money, but that the people listening to you could give money to do something like this. And I would give you some money. I could give you $100 to start it off.
It would be very, very costly to do, and I would have to look at the idea. I kind of like it. I remember when Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth got their billboard up in Times Square, but that took a massive, massive effort to get that done. And I can imagine that the space around CNN is very pricey. We don't even know if it's zoned for billboard advertising. We'd have to go down with Google Street View and take a look around and see if there are other billboards. But I know those units are very, very expensive. So it's a good idea, and I like it. And if we could find some kind of a conservative angel who wants to write the check for it. But I don't want to start a crowdfunding operation for something that might fail to reach its goal. Because that wouldn't be fair to the people who donated. But I do like the idea.
I can understand that. But this is something, just like they used to have, wallpapers in China years ago, huge, where millions of people would just come to walls and look at what was written on them.
Yes.
Well, there's nothing quite like that. And it wouldn't have to be, you could put whatever news on it you want to. And lots of people don't pay any attention to the internet, and they don't know anything about it. You could jog their brains a little bit if they were riding down the highway somewhere and they could see it. You wouldn't have to put it at CNN to start with.
No, you don't need to convince me. It's a good idea. I just think there are some practical considerations. All right?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Now, cartoonist Ben Garrison. First of all, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network. Ben Garrison, is this well-known political cartoonist and commentator, is out there saying that this Trump derangement syndrome has reached epidemic proportions. And we're just seeing the carriers of TDS just shrieking out their hatred of President Trump and conservatives in general. And they've made it this issue over the children being separated at the border. They've tried to claim this is Trump's idea. It wasn't. It goes all the way back to the Clinton administration. Clinton and Obama had the same exact policy. But we're seeing all of these people just come on out and just behave irrationally, like Rob Reiner, who's comparing Trump to Hitler. And they're out there saying, this is all racist policy. No, it's about illegal immigration. Because both here in the United States and in Europe, the burdens of illegal immigration and migration are obvious to everybody. It's financial, social, political. And then we've got the implication of illegal immigrants voting in elections to sway marginally Republican districts toward becoming Democratic districts, allowing the Democrats to seize control of Congress. Now, all of this, of course, is illegal. Illegal immigrants are not allowed to vote in our elections, but we have Democratic leaders out there saying they're dependent on that immigrant vote. This is what they're running on for November. They're hoping to have all the immigrants in the United States vote Democratic. What they're doing, though, is they're turning off mainstream Americans who realize none of this is above board. So now we've got Maxine Waters, who's out there saying that anybody who doesn't support the liberal Democratic platform is to be harassed, shunned. Anybody who supported the Trump candidacy over Hillary Clinton. But this confrontational behavior, it's a dead giveaway. The Democrats don't really have a message anymore. They've been playing victimhood so long. They've forgotten how to actually go on out and find what the American people really want. They don't have anything that's gaining any traction. And the polls are showing that this immigration thing is actually backfiring. Their numbers are going down. And the timing of this, of course, is very suspect because of the fanning it up just as the Inspector General report came on out. So it's a distraction. We are being conditized yet again. And we have all this political infighting and now calls to violence. Are we really headed to a civil war in the streets of this country? Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus liberal, legal citizens against illegal citizens? What Maxine Waters did is absolutely unforgivable. Now, I don't expect the House of Representatives is going to carry forward on the resolution to have her resign. But we do need to keep this in the forefront of the voters' eyes next time she comes up for election. This is completely unacceptable behavior for a member of Congress. All right, so let's get into the war zones. There's plenty going on there. The Syrian Arab Army, the Tiger forces, and their allies have established full control over the district of Lajat in the province of Daraa. And according to pro-government sources, militants in the area have pretty much mostly surrendered to the government troops. Now, additionally, the Syrian Arab Army and its allies liberated the village of Mlaha al-Ach, and captured the center of Bursar al-Harir. And if all these reports are confirmed, basically government forces have liberated about 400 square kilometers since the start of clashes in northeastern Daraa last week. That is amazing progress in a military confrontation. Now, back on June 25th, the Russian Defense Ministry released a statement saying that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly al-Nusra, had carried out a large attack on government positions in the province, and the attack was repelled. 70 militants were killed. Now, the attack was likely to attempt to sabotage the Syrian Arab Army progress in Lajat. Now, throwing more kerosene onto the fire, on the 26th, Israel reportedly carried out a new missile strike on Syria, targeting the Damascus International Airport. So Israel is still in there throwing punches left and right. 50,000 civilians flee homes as the Syrian government attack on rebel-held area intensifies. And we're talking about in the southwestern region. And the U.S. so far is not intervening, at least overtly here. Journalists in the area say that at least 27 civilians were killed. And the UN is saying that this figure of refugees could easily double. Now, there's an interesting little article that came out of the American Conservative asking, are al-Qaeda affiliates fighting right alongside U.S. rebels in Syria's south? And basically, they're talking about how the Russian brokered reconciliation talks fell apart when the Western-backed militants rejected a negotiated peace. So is there, in fact, going to be a new flare-up of that conflict? But the reason this is important to ask whether al-Qaeda is fighting alongside the U.S.-backed rebels is because, remember, in between claiming that Assad is gassing his own people, the U.S. is selling this war to you on the claim that we're really in part of the war on terror, that we're fighting ISIS, and that we're fighting al-Qaeda. Which leads us to this next story coming out of 12160, where apparently local sources are reporting 2 helicopters of the U.S. coalition landed in Twimin village to evacuate 2 senior ISIS commanders to the U.S. base at al-Shadada town. Meanwhile, U.S. airstrikes on eastern Syria have so far massacred hundreds more innocent civilians, mostly women and children, on that pretext of fighting ISIS. Now, Bashar al-Assad has just done something very smart. Now that the war is winding down, everybody's talking reconstruction, and American banks are stepping on in and say, we'll loan you all the money you need to rebuild here, and that'll be good for business, be good for our business. And Assad is basically saying, no, he does not want any foreign money for Syria's reconstruction. They still have their oil assets, and it will take them a lot longer to rebuild because the U.S. has basically trashed the place. But they're going to basically do it on their own, because they know that with that foreign money comes foreign obligations. And Assad, I guess, has really been studying American history, because this is something the U.S. used to use all over South America. They would go on in with generous loans, and then they'd engage in industrial sabotage so the loans could not be repaid, and then use the awareness of that debt to basically intervene politically in those countries. It's one of the reasons why so many of those South American countries hate us. They know what's going on. They're not really being fooled by any of it. Now, as you know, over in Turkey, Erdogan won his re-election along with his new constitution that gives him a lot more power. Already his opponents are saying this election was rigged, and we reported yesterday how Turkish police arrested 3 people that they found in a car with these sacks of forged ballots. So it does look like he stole the election, but there's nobody in Turkey able to stand up to him on that issue. So the question now is, with this new victory and his new constitution, is Turkey about to ramp up its aggression against the Kurds? And I would say that in all probability, the answer is going to be yes. Now, up in Ukraine, as you know, Russia Today has been reporting for quite some time that Ukraine's government is definitely swinging neo-Nazi. And, of course, the Western media said that's ridiculous. Poroshenko and his people, they're our friends. They believe in American values. But the Atlantic Council has finally come on out and said, yeah, there is a problem. Ukraine has a Nazi problem. And they're hemming and hawing about why it took so long for them to acknowledge it. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Atlantic Council is NATO's propaganda wing. And whenever its lobbyists or guest writers publish opinions which digress from the standard Washington foreign policy establishment position, it usually suggests a change in attitude is on the cards. So maybe one way this could be interpreted is that after all this money and all this bloodshed, that the U.S. has decided Poroshenko really can't pull off recapturing the eastern Ukrainian republics, let alone Crimea, and they may decide to de-escalate. Or, alternative theory, they're getting ready to just really throw all kinds of weapons into Ukraine, risking a direct war with Russia itself. Over in the European Union, they are formally moving on the creation of what they call a military intervention force. And this is something that Germany and France have been pushing for quite some time. But it would basically require all the member nations to send troops and supplies to this army, which would be answerable to Brussels. In other words, the EU's equivalent of a standing army with which to threaten the member states. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay, unemployment getting
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And yes, once again, the beg is going on out. Republic Broadcasting needs your help. And there's no such thing as too small a donation. I get donations of $1, and I do appreciate it. And they get a thank you letter, even though the stamp is 47 cents. So anyway, if you'd like to support Republic Broadcasting and keep our important work moving forward, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. If you want to phone in and donate by credit card, or if you want to pledge to be a recurring subscriber, the phone number is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during normal business hours and extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. Moving on here to the international news, Israeli forces are demolishing Palestinian agricultural and commercial buildings in the Hizma neighborhood of Jerusalem. And witnesses told Ma'an news agency that Israeli forces escorted staff from the Israeli Jerusalem municipality, raided Hizma surrounding these buildings, and basically razed them, scraped them down to prevent the owners from rebuilding. So more demolitions here. Meanwhile, over in Nablus, Israeli settlers burned 300 Palestinian olive trees. Now, olives are one of the few things that Palestine produces, and it's important to their economy. It's also important to their pride. And the problem is that it takes 10 years for a newly planted olive tree to produce usable crop, to actually produce olives that are okay to eat and okay to sell. 10 years. So this is an attack by these Israeli settlers on the livelihood of the Palestinians, just at a time when the United States has frozen Palestinian aid funding. And apparently the U.S. froze the funding as part of the Taylor Force Act, which requires Palestinian officials to end payments to terrorist groups and take steps to stop those groups' behavior. Well, nobody really knows where some of the money is going. One of the issues is that the Palestinian Authority, and for that matter Hamas, do try and support the families of people who are killed by Israel. But Israel simply declares everybody that they kill was a terrorist, lumps their families in with them. And this is all about just ethnic cleansing. The Israelis are trying to just get the Palestinians to leave. They just figure if they whoop on them hard enough, sooner or later they'll give up. But you have to admit the Palestinians have shown an amazing resilience through the years. Absolutely. Now, over at Great Britain, the leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, has basically said the Labour Party is committed to complete recognition of a Palestinian state and to calling for the end of Israel's policy of occupation and settlement, not to mention the blockade on Gaza. And Corbyn was criticizing the Trump administration's negation efforts, known as the deal of the century. And he's saying it's time to end the occupation, it's time to end the illegal settlements, the siege of Gaza, and granting the Palestinians their right of return, which was promised by the United Nations and by Israel. Now, that means that if Theresa May gets pulled down in the next election over their immigration issues and Labor takes over, that's going to be a big step forward for the Palestinians. Meanwhile, the Freedom Flotilla is still heading toward Gaza, and there's a nice little video that we linked to on the front page of whatreallyhappened.com. They're about at Spain, getting ready to go through the Straits of Gibraltar. Interestingly enough, Mike Pompeo is now saying he's not going to put a timeline on the negotiations with North Korea. But the Trump administration will regularly assess the regime's seriousness about abandoning its nuclear program as the U.S. moves toward normalizing relations with North Korea. Now, this means that the process could actually drag on for a very, very long time. But I think what's missing in the equation is that North Korea has to see the United States take steps to normalize relations. So far, all the good moves have been with South Korea. But the U.S. is still out there. They're not lifting the sanctions. They did call off the naval drills off the coast, but that's about it here. Now, North Korea is talking about relocating their artillery out of the range of Seoul, South Korea. So ever since the ceasefire in the Korean War, North Korea has built a lot of artillery. They have 1,000 artillery pieces on that border that can hit Seoul. Now they're talking about just shipping them someplace else. That's a good first step. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If if you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers in New York.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about North Korea. Now, North Korea is talking tough with Japan, saying that there will be no talks unless Japan backs off its military buildup and all of its drills. Now, this is going to be a problem because Japan's Prime Minister Abe Shinzo has really been pursuing enlarging Japan's military. And he's made remilitarization a major foreign policy priority, which has not escaped the notice of North Korea. Now, this may be a real impasse here, and the idea of a newly emergent Japanese military presence in the Eastern Pacific is going to change the dynamics in that whole part of the world. But after what North Korea has been through, I can understand their nervousness. Okay, we're going to go to the phones here. Dave in Missouri, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, you knew it was going to happen, so I thought I might as well be the one. You kind of skated over pretty quickly on the loony left, and I know that's because we're all so sick of it, and so I wanted to let you kind of go on with your world news for at least a couple segments before I drug you back to that despicable topic. But, I mean, so this was kind of what I thought about lately that I wanted to share with you. You know, the thing that always brought Republicans and Democrats together has been globalism, was free trade. You know, they disagreed about things on the fringe, but the things they were always rock solid and together on was free trade. That's the gospel come down from the Lord, you know, globalism, hallelujah, you know, and then they could come together kumbaya. And they only really fought around the surface. So when Trump rode this nationalist wave in, it really bankrupted them because they no longer, they never could really sell free trade if they talked about it openly and honestly. They could never really sell globalism honestly. So, you know, all they could do was just try to keep people distracted on the peripheral. And I know what you're saying. I know you know what I mean. You know, and while they were stealing from them with both hands through free trade, globalism, and all that. But the nationalist wave took that legs out from under them. So now all they have is the fringe. Now the Republicans, if they're not quick and smart and understand that this nationalism thing is real and get behind it 100%, they're going to go the way the DNC is. But I just do not believe that this lunatic left, as far as they're going, they're not going to provoke a civil war. That's going to take, what, 15 minutes when you meet the hillbillies in Arkansas? Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to, you know, I guess on these college campuses, you know, to these McDonald's-eating, educated, you know what I'm saying. It's not going to work well for them, and I don't believe it's going to happen. So the Democrats have really killed themselves, and if the Republicans don't get on board with nationalism, I believe they will have killed themselves too. What do you think?
It's a good analysis, and you're certainly right about the Democrats self-destructing right now. And the more hysterical they get, the more they call for violence. I think most mainstream Americans are just repulsed by it.
Sure. I mean, they're cutting their own throats off every single day. And, you know, they don't have sense enough to stop. So, you know, they're their own worst enemy. The best thing we can do is just continue to support whatever progress we can get out of this president and try not to be part of the parade that wants to drag him down and all the minutia and the outsides and whatever's contrived to distract from the progress that is. And, you know, I mean, progress, you know, moving the capital or moving our embassy to Jerusalem. Come on, despicable. I mean, even the North Korea thing, I'm not really on board with. But, you know, I can see the longer term of it. So, you know, it's not the way we always traditionally dealt with communism, so to speak. But, hey, you know, we've financed communism through Walmart and China for the last 30 years. So, you know, to our own demise. So, you know, maybe there's a longer picture, and if we have patience, it'll play out. But I think just let the Democrats hang themselves, keep giving them rope, because, man, there's nobody doing a better job of it than they are. I love you. Peace out. Folks, please support RBN. I'm going to listen to your response.
Okay,
care,
well,
Mike.
my response basically is that you're right. The optics on what's going on, whether it's Maxine Waters or Samantha Bee or Kathy Griffin, the optics are bad. The liberal Democrats are coming across as a group with no real message, no real platform, no interest in a rational debate as to the current conditions in this country. They certainly don't want to talk about the economy. None of the politicians want to talk about the economy. I mean, they'll all say it's great and it's roaring, but they don't want to get into the fine details which undermine that. But the Democrats are looking like a party without a mission, a ship without a captain. We've been hearing from the Democratic leadership. They're starting to focus on Obama as the new figurehead. And we've got Hillary grandstanding all around the world, giving speeches like she's seriously thinking of running again in 2020. But it's beginning to really wear out. And you're right, the Republicans got sucked into playing the same kind of rhetorical games as the Democrats. And maybe that's their way of avoiding talking about the real issues, like the deterioration of the infrastructure and the wars. But we're seeing basically this facade of a government. And when you couple that with the obvious cover-ups surrounding the email server and the rest of it, I think Americans are realizing what we see, what is presented to us as the federal government, is just a mask. And what is behind that mask is not only very ugly, but very different than what most people would think. All right, so we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I got to disagree partially with Trump on the dangerous, Muslim countries, because why is Iran on there? The world's most dangerous state-sponsored terrorist is Saudi Arabia. They're not even on the list. Now, that blows me away.
I would absolutely agree. But again, Trump's list is not factual. It is political. Iran is on the list to demonize Iran because there's a war being planned for there. Saudi Arabia is not on the list because they're our good buddies, and it doesn't matter if they're exporting terrorism. Israel's not on the list. They export terrorism as well. And right now, the United States is the biggest exporter of terrorism when you consider that ISIS and Al-Qaeda work for the U.S. government, and I note that the United States is not on that list.
Hey, Mike, your last caller, he was talking about, Trump's with the trade and this or that, or I don't understand. Like with Harley Davidson, Mike, I got to ask you a question. Like the parts are made in China, but yet they're built here by American. Like how? I don't understand why Trump came out against Harley. I mean, they can't compete with like other companies, right? I mean, like because the parts are made in China and their workforce is here. There's no way they can. I mean, I don't know what they can do. Like you know what I mean? Like what can an American company do to compete? You can't. You got to reduce your workers' wages, right? I mean,
well, the situation with Harley Davidson is another example of a policy that sounds really good in a press conference, but may not work out all that well. I mean. The vast majority of the work that goes into building a motorcycle is the fabrication of those parts. And what they do here in the U.S. is the final assembly, which is a very small part of the job. But Harley can say, built here in America and be more or less telling the truth here. But the tariffs are going to make it much more expensive for Harley Davidson to get those parts. And Harley Davidson is now talking about just leaving the United States altogether. And Trump is threatening them with major taxes if they do.
Yeah, it's like there's no it's like a negative for us, Mike, because we're going to have to pay more than. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how these tariffs are nothing but it's a VAT tax, right? That's what it is. It's a VAT tax.
From the point of view, the point of view of the consumer, that's exactly what it is. It's just another tax. The government gets more of our money.
So it's not going to do anything but hurt this country even more.
It's hurting every country that is involved in this little trade war. Trade wars are always hurting the ordinary people and ordinary, small businesses. And then somewhere down the road, there'll be a new trade agreement where, they'll hammer it out and they'll call it free trade. But of course, if you have to have a treaty, it's not really free. It's regulated.
And also, the last caller said, about, like you said, the loony left. But, like he said, John McCain is, not a lefty, but he's a globalist. The Bushes were globalists.
Yes.
The Clintons are obviously globalist. Who's not anymore? You know what I mean? Like, they're not, they're all on board with that.
Yes,
you know
they
what I mean?
are.
Like who? And that's not even including the people who don't come out and say anything in the Congress and the Senate.
Yes.
They all are on board with arming the terrorists or blaming Russia or Iran. You notice that? That's you wonder, whose side are these people really on?
They're on their
any
own
of the
side.
Congress or the Senate.
They're on their own side. They're there to get rich. They're there to have a lot of fun and throw their power around. But we were talking the other day about how somebody did an assessment, a map of the United States. Where do the psychopaths live? And the highest density is inside that beltway. Whether you want to call them psychopaths or sociopaths, it's still a type of human personality that is totally focused on self and totally oblivious to anybody else's feelings. They absolutely lack empathy. And it's not a question of they're not caring. They are literally unable to care what their actions do to people around them.
And then, Mike, real quick, I wanted to mention, I saw a map of where the ISIS and the Al-Qaeda forces, Al-Nusra Front is. That's in the, the southwest, right?
Yes.
That's where the Syrians are fighting. And isn't it amazing how Al-Nusra or ISIS is right next to Israel, but yet they're still there? It shows you Israel flies over ISIS to bomb the Syrian Arab army, which means that proves that and Saudi Arabia are ISIS. They are, and the United States supplies them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We had that story earlier where U.S. helicopters were witnessed evacuating 2 high-level ISIS commanders out of an area where they're losing the fight and getting them off to this airbase.
Isn't that amazing, though, how these terrorists, which drive over people, kill women and kill children, and Israel flies right over them to bomb the Syrian Arab army who's fighting them? That tells you who these people are.
Yes.
Not everybody in Israel, but the government.
Yep.
Just like here, the government. And that's all I need to say. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good, Mike. Mike, I have a question for you with the Kurds. If the Kurds of Iran, Iraq, and Syria, I believe those are the 3 countries where the Kurds are living, decide to unite, and Turkey, of course, Turkey itself, do you think they could possibly overthrow the entire Turkish government and take over Turkey as they once did? I understand that Saladin was actually a Kurd. Do you think they could do it?
I don't think so, because Turkey is very well armed and the Kurds are not. There had been a plan to create an independent Kurdistan as a way of weakening all the neighbor states, but that plan appears to have been dropped, and I think the Kurds are being double-crossed.
But they're not the type of people to just lay down. It's not. I don't think they can do to the Kurds what they did to the Armenians. The Turks, again, like I said, Saladin, from what I understand, was actually a Kurd, and I believe at that time the Ottoman Empire was ruled by Kurds. So I just don't see them just taking it. Just keep on taking it. I mean, there's a lot of Kurds in all those countries.
Well, I'm sure they're fighting. I'm sure they're fighting back, but they're not being supplied with the kind of weapons that Turkey and Iraq have.
Well, they're right in Turkey itself, so sometimes they don't need those weapons, or they can get a hold of them from the Turks themselves. Raiding armories and stuff like that. And by the way, I want to ask you something about that too. Did you say Saladin one time that he didn't care about Jerusalem really? That it might be better if it just They just destroyed it or something
It's a
like
quote
that?
from a movie. It's a quote from a movie. It's called Kingdom of Heaven. It was directed by Ridley Scott. And at the very end of the movie, when Balian is negotiating with Salahuddin, he's saying, if you try and take the city by force, we'll burn it all down. All the things that drive men mad. And the character of Salahuddin in the movie says, I wonder if it would not be better if you did. Which was kind of the gist of the whole movie. It's just how much human misery and bloodshed has been inspired by these piles of stone sitting on these hills. And it really does drive men mad.
I mean, you got a vice president and a secretary of state right now who seem to think we should bring the end of the world kind of right in that area so Jesus comes back. I mean, it's really, and then you got the Israelis themselves like Netanyahu who, I don't know, they think they can do something with that temple or something like that.
Yep.
Temple Mount. You got all kinds of crazy stuff. Did you think Saladin really said that?
No, I don't think he said it. It was made up for the movie because the whole point of the movie was just kind of showing how there's this endless series of, conflicts over these so-called holy sites. And it really is insane when you look at it. Just not in Saladin's time, but even today. Even today, they're still slaughtering each other over whose imaginary playmate has the biggest dick.
I don't know how to put it down. I mean, you got a way of saying that. But anyway, what was the name of this movie? Because I might want to, is it an old movie or what?
No, it was made about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, and it's called Kingdom of Heaven.
Who starred in it,
Orlando Bloom, and I forget the name of the guy who played Salahuddin, but he's a very famous Egyptian actor.
Oh, Bloom didn't play it, right?
He played Balian. Or maybe I have the wrong... No, I might have the wrong name here. Remember the guy who played the elf in Lord of the Rings? That guy.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Extendivite A 7-herb combination of garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite is designed to strengthen the heart and arteries and help the body heal itself. Doctors are not able to explain the improvements they are seeing in their patients' health who are taking Extendivite. People who once needed more pills are now taking less and getting better. Due to the unexplainable improvements in their patients' health, more doctors are calling to order Extendivite for themselves. Help Extendivite make your doctor a believer. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we are getting confirmation that, in point of fact, Al Jazeera has canned the undercover investigation of the U.S.-Israel lobby. And apparently a huge amount of pressure was brought to bear on the government of Qatar. And so we don't get to learn about our government the way the people of Great Britain did, because in Great Britain, they aired it. A 4-part special on the Israel lobby in Great Britain, and it woke a lot of people up. But here in the United States, you're supposed to stay asleep. Supposed to stay on the blue pill. And basically they're saying Israel lobby groups got to Qatari leaders, and some kind of a deal was made. And unless somebody leaks this out, which is always possible, we don't get to see it. So anytime somebody asks, do you really think the Israel lobby has any kind of power? Yeah, they do, including the power to try and remain invisible. Now, we're getting a very interesting story coming out of the White House here. And they're basically saying there hasn't been a high-level firing since last March when John Bolton took over from H.R. McMaster. But there are rumblings now that Secretary of Defense Mattis has fallen out of favor with Donald Trump, and he's being increasingly shut out of major White House decisions, which usually is a sign that somebody is about to be let go. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, here's a little story that came on out. Do you remember all the way back when the DNC servers got hacked, supposedly by Russia? That was the thing. It was Russia did it. Russia hacking, Russia hacking, Russia hacking. And at the same time, there was apparently negotiations between the United States government and Julian Assange over a possible immunity deal. And the deal was going to be that Assange was willing to basically filter certain releases from WikiLeaks so that people in sensitive positions like foreign assets would not be exposed, which strikes me as the responsible thing to be doing. And apparently he put on the table that as part of the deal, he would provide technical evidence that Russia did not hack the DNC. And apparently at that point, James Comey killed the deal. Because if they'd gone forward and Julian Assange had proven the Russians didn't hack the DNC servers, then the attention would have shifted back to Seth Rich and the high probability that he was a leaker and that was what he was killed for. And obviously Comey would want to keep all of that hushed up because he's part of it. So that's who killed the deal on Julian Assange. Hillary is over in Great Britain. She's at Oxford University. She made a speech, and now she's comparing Trump to Erdogan. Used to be Hitler, now it's Erdogan. We'll be right back after station identification.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And as I was mentioning before we took our station break, Hillary Clinton is over in Britain, speaking at Oxford University, giving a speech. And instead of comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler, she's now comparing him to Turkey's Erdogan. And then she launched another screed about the Electoral College and how she won the popular vote in 2016, and the Electoral College took it away from her. She just cannot let go of that. Now, if you subtract out the illegal immigrant vote, and we know that a lot of illegal immigrants did vote, Hillary lost the popular vote as well. But here's the point. Going into the election, they all knew the rules. Got to focus on getting those electors. And Hillary had all those super delegates that she was using. And both sides played by the rules. If it had been a strictly popular election, both campaigns would have been run very differently. Hillary just cannot accept the fact that the American people didn't like her. And all the election rigging and the skullduggery and cheating Bernie Sanders out of the primary is not going to change that. But what really worries me about how she's going around doing all this speaking again is I'm starting to really think she's going to try and step back in. And she may be emboldened by the fact that the Democrats really don't have anybody else going into 2020 with her name value. I wish they'd run Tulsi Gabbard, I really do. But I think she's going to run again. I think she's going to run again. Now, over at Special Counsel Mueller's office, as you know, they have been really pounding on Michael Flynn. And he's this ex-Trump administration official. Mueller was confident he could flip and turn on Donald Trump. Now, Mueller was indicted Flynn on a single charge of lying to the FBI in December of 2016, and Flynn pled out, promising to work with Mueller per his plea agreement. But apparently, despite all the pressure and the threats, Flynn won't crack, according to sources. He won't rat out Trump. There may be another explanation. There may be nothing that Flynn knows that could be used against Trump. But regardless of exactly what's going on here, apparently Mueller is furious. He's steaming. And he can't find anything. All these months and all these millions of dollars, he can't find anything. And I think his plan was to actually arm twist Flynn or somebody else into being willing to tell a lie. And Flynn is saying no. Over in France, the French prosecutor has opened a probe into the Emmanuel Macron campaign. And apparently, The complaint was filed from lawmakers in Lyon, who alleged last week that city authorities had assisted Macron, who campaigned several times there. And that is a tacky no-no in France. And actually, it's a tacky no-no here as well. You're not supposed to have government involvement in your campaign. The campaign has to be totally isolated from the political system and the governmental system. So he's in trouble for that. They have a little bit of a mystery over in Amsterdam because somebody intentionally crashed a van into the head office of the Dutch daily newspaper De Telegraaf, and the van burst into flames, may have had some accelerants on board. The driver escaped. Nobody was hurt, but there's no question it was definitely a deliberate act. So we're going to stay on that one. Over at The Intercept, they ran this story called The Wiretap Rooms. And if we go on back to even before we had Edward Snowden, there were allegations of rooms inside telephone switching centers that were being used by the NSA to eavesdrop on people. Well, that has now grown to entire buildings. These windowless skyscrapers, and they're built to withstand earthquakes, and they're right in the heart of cities. Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. And these buildings look innocuous. There are no labels on the outside. People are walking past them every day and not noticing them. But apparently these buildings are engaged in the wholesale collection of all of our communications, all of it in violation of the Fourth Amendment, right to privacy. So that spy system has really, really grown. It is everywhere. It is ubiquitous. It is an offense against the Constitution and the American people. And personally, I don't think they can evaluate the data. They've got simply too much of it. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates rejoining our network. And let's talk a little bit about the economy. Investor Peter Schiff is sounding the warning that the dollar is going to depreciate in the ongoing trade war with China. Well, it's turning into a currency war, and both currencies are being depreciated. But that makes it more difficult for Americans to pay for products imported from other countries that are not depreciating their currency. So there's going to be shortages and hardships for the American people. And he's out there questioning this idea that the dollar is going to benefit from a trade war. He thinks it's flat out wrong. And he thinks it's as wrong-headed as the concept that the dollar is going to benefit from a larger budget deficit. And no, it won't. This economy is hopelessly messed up, despite all the talk about, recovery and, low unemployment and good GDP and low inflation. It's all make-believe. It's all make-believe. And according to this article in Sputnik News, the U.S. economy is going full throttle toward ruin. And Trump is looking at serious economic troubles with a steadily increasing federal deficit and national debt. Now, if Donald Trump is reelected in 2020, and if he doesn't start keeping some of his campaign promises, he won't be. But if he is, he's going to have to deal with $1 trillion deficit and a U.S. debt to gross domestic product ratio exceeding 100%. And the U.S. Office of Government Accountability, basically on the 21st, said the economy is going to be in trouble unless measures are taken as soon as possible. We could stop all these wars, think about how much money we'd save there. Or we could have better accountability where the money went. Remember a story that came on out, I think it was about a month ago, where at least according to the bookkeeping, there's something like $21 trillion that's just gone missing. It's just disappeared. Now they're going to say, oh, it's just accounting mistakes. We have all the money. We just don't know where it is, but don't worry about it. I mean, if they had that money, they could pretty much erase the national debt. Over in Iran, their foreign minister is concerned that with the collapse of the nuclear deal, the Iranian currency is in serious trouble. Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif admitted to the Iran Chamber of Congress that the collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal will have very dangerous consequences for the country. Now, Trump has withdrawn the United States from the deal, which he said was disastrous from the beginning. No, it wasn't. It was working. So the Iranian rial, their currency, plunged to a record low against the U.S. dollar on the unofficial market on Sunday, continuing to slide amid fears of returning U.S. sanctions, which are coming. And Iran has already banned 1,300 imports as an economic protest shuts shops in Tehran. So, again, more misery across the globe. Now, as I mentioned in that phone call from a listener, Harley-Davidson has been moving production overseas to places like India and Thailand for the last 10 years. And now they're talking about closing plants in Kansas City. They're using Trump's tariffs as their excuse. But you also need to understand, the main market for the Harley motorcycles were the baby boomers. And we're too old to ride anymore. The millennials don't have much money. Remember, the Harley is a pricey bike. It's a status symbol. And when the millennials buy motorcycles, they just go for the cheap Japanese ones they can get. Now, Harley-Davidson has had problems before, multiple owners, but Trump is threatening taxes on Harley-Davidson like never before if it moves overseas. Russia has now introduced additional duties on imports of U.S. goods. They're calling it balancing measures, and Russia will impose additional import duties on a number of goods that have an alternative in the Russian market. And see, that's what can make that sort of thing work. If there's an alternative domestically produced, tariffs can work to steer business that way. And in a lot of cases, for some of these products, we're a little slow getting up to speed. Now, some of the steel mills have been reopened, and I understand that Ford is actually talking about building a new automobile plant back up in Detroit. So that would be a good thing. But we're in a very delicate, fragile position here. Once again, Wells Fargo is being accused of misconduct, this time because it allegedly used complex financial investments to take advantage of mom and pop investors. The SEC said on Monday that between 2009 and 2013, Wells Fargo reaped large fees by improperly encouraging brokerage clients to actively trade high-fee debt products that were intended to be held to maturity. Brokers sometimes call it churning the account, where they'll just buy and sell stock in and out of your account in order to run up the brokerage fees. Now, Wells Fargo Advisors, which is Wells Fargo's brokerage division, agreed to pay a $4 million penalty over its handling of the products, and the bank also has to return $930,000 worth of ill-gotten gains plus $178,000 of interest. Now, Wells Fargo is neither admitting or denying the Security Exchange Commission's allegations, saying merely that it cooperated fully with the latest investigation. I think the financial system needs a drastic simplification so that ordinary people can understand it. People get a little risk capital, venture capital. They walk into a stockbroker and, like the banks, they think, oh, these are honest, good people. They're dealing with money. They must be good. But there are a lot of crooked brokers, and they will take advantage of your lack of knowledge. So you need to keep things simple here. Meanwhile, gold exports to London from the United States have surged 152% this year. And gold exports to Hong Kong and China fell 25%. London's apparently picking up the slack. So I wonder why the U.S. is exporting gold at a time when so many other countries are calling for the repatriation of their gold stored in these vaults in New York. We're getting the big stall. Anyway, according to a poll of leading European businesses, 45% of European Union businesses are cutting their investments in Great Britain ahead of the Brexit. They're starting to delink their economies, and it's going to be a slow process. But in the end, it's going to allow Great Britain to definitely become much more independent. Russia's state-run gas giant Gazprom has resumed the laying of the second line of the Turkish Stream gas pipeline. They announced it just earlier today. The Pioneering Spirit vessel resumed the laying of the second line, moving towards the city of Kyiv in Turkey. And after entering the Black Sea, Pioneering Spirit completed the preparatory work, including launching what's called the Stinger and inspecting the pipe laying equipment. So they're running part of this underwater. I hope they do a better job of building their pipelines than happens here in the U.S. Poor Tesla. They are still struggling tremendously. And as you know, they have to meet this goal of being able to pump out 5,000 Model 3 sedans a week by the end of this month. And the Model 3 is intended to be a more affordable Tesla, whereas the earlier models were very pricey status symbols. And I think it's a good idea to bring down the cost of the electric cars. But apparently, in an effort to increase productivity, Elon Musk has set up a new assembly line inside a giant tent. And a lot of people are saying it's insanity. But if it works, it works. Obviously, being a tent, it's only going to be a temporary structure. But the tent is the size of 2 football fields. And manufacturing experts are saying, basically, it's nuts. It's a creative solution, I think. Not too long ago, we were talking about how the collapse of BT cotton in India had led to an epidemic of farmer suicides who just couldn't live with the idea of losing their farm. And unfortunately, we're starting to see that here in the United States, just from the economic reality, where farmers are struggling to live on the income they had 15 years ago, which you can't with the higher prices. But we have this unequal economy combined with patchy access to health care in rural areas, and it's having a severe impact on the people growing America's food. And apparently recent data shows that farmers are dying by suicide at a higher rate than any other occupational group, according to the CDC. Now, the suicide rate in the field of farming, fishing, and forestry is 84.5 per 100,000 people, more than 5 times that of the population as a whole. That's even as the nation overall has seen an increase in suicide rates over the last 30 years. Like I said, the one time there was a gun incident in the town I was growing up in, it was an attempted suicide. Okay, so let's talk about AT&T and Time Warner. A lot of people are looking at this deal as being monopolistic and bad for the end consumer. And there was an interesting little analysis over in Zero Hedge that went back for an historical precedent to 2000 when America Online bought Time Warner for $162 billion, which back then was considered an astonishing amount of money. And their goal was to create a tech media giant, which didn't really work. And Time Warner was trying to establish an online presence and they wanted to basically tap into America Online's 26 million dial-up subscribers. This is 2000. A lot of people still connected over modem. The problem was January 2000, when the deal was made, was the top of the market, and the dot-com bubble burst almost immediately, triggering a recession. So history may not repeat, but it does rhyme. And the problem with the current merger between AT&T and Time Warner is debt, because first of all, AT&T paid $108 billion for Time Warner, but Time Warner will only contribute around $1 billion in annual free cash flow to AT&T. So the numbers don't really look good on this at all. All right, we're going to take another break here for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations, A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And according to Fred Hickey, we are in the middle of another technology bubble. And he's saying it's far larger than the 1999-2000 one, where everybody just thought the sky was the limit and companies were being valued for vast sums of money, and a lot of fortunes were made, sometimes literally overnight. But it was a bubble, and it did burst. And right now, as the consumer economy struggles in this country, we may see it happen again. The companies that are making tablets, smartwatches, computers, Fitbits, they didn't really keep up with the times. They didn't really want to accept that their customers just don't have the money for pricey gadgets anymore. We don't have the money to constantly upgrade from Windows 8 to Windows 10 and then buy all new versions of our applications. More and more people are just learning to do without. Just say, you know, it wasn't that big a deal. I'll get outside more, get some exercise. I'll take up wood carving. It's just way too much. All right, so let's get back to the subject of immigration because it's still on out there. Apparently, Representative Ted Lieu, who's a Democrat, ignored House rules last Friday and played an audio of detained immigrant children crying, trying to highlight the thousands of young kids who've been ripped from their parents by the Trump administration. My first response is, how about playing audio of the children of Afghanistan crying, or the children of Syria, or Iraq, or Libya, or Yemen, or for that matter, Gaza? Where's the audio of them? And by the way, there is something you need to remember. Trump didn't start this. The law requiring separation of children was passed by the Congress in 1997. The Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act was passed during the Clinton administration and upheld all through the years until the Democrats tried to make it an issue with which to attack Trump and, of course, distract America from the Inspector General report into the Hillary email server investigation. Now, Ralph Nader basically wagged his finger, Twitter-wise, both to Laura Bush and Michelle Obama, who are out there saying, oh, those poor children, oh, those poor children down there at the border. And he asked, why is there no heartfelt concern for the tens of thousands of children killed or maimed by their husbands' wars? And that's definitely a point here. We're seeing crocodile tears. These people are only concerned with children if they're politically useful, if they can be used to push the open borders agenda, if they can be used to hit Donald Trump politically. Otherwise, who cares about them? Now, Sinclair Broadcast Group is under fire, this time for a local broadcast must-run segment that tries to claim the government's brutal immigration and child separation policies are little more than a giant misunderstanding caused by the journalists covering the story. And the segment features Boris Epshteyn, Sinclair's chief political analysis, and a former Trump advisor talking about it. Now, this article contained that lawsuit that a caller mentioned the other day. It was called Flores versus Reno. And it was basically a lawsuit that was filed expressing concern about the detention of juvenile aliens taken into custody. Now, the Clinton administration agreed to settle this litigation despite the fact that the Supreme Court had upheld the Immigration and Naturalization Service regulation that provided for the release of minors only to their parents, close relatives, or legal guardians. Now, according to DHS, the Flores Agreement allows the agency to detain unaccompanied minors for only 20 days before releasing them to the Department of Health and Human Services, which places the minors in foster or shelter situations until they can locate a sponsor. But then the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit interpreted the settlement agreement to apply to both minors who are accompanied and unaccompanied by their parents. We can count on that sort of thing from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, again, these minors, they are illegals, and they should be sent back, and it shouldn't be our problem to have to take care of them. article that came on out of the Political Insider documenting 5 times that MS-13 used children to illegally enter the United States. And then they went on to commit violent crimes. Now, as you know, Senate Democrats have signed an obtuse piece of legislation called the Keep Families Together Act that would release any person who illegally crosses the border with a child in tow. In other words, every single Senate Democrat signed a piece of legislation that quite literally encourages child trafficking. And they ought to be ashamed of them for that. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break, and we got a caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about immigration, and we're talking about the dark side that the liberals don't want you to see. Over in Virginia, they have just charged 11 MS-13 gang members, 10 of whom are illegal immigrants, in the kidnapping and murder of 2 teenagers whose bodies were found in a Virginia park last year. In fact, they've been buried. Now, the ages of these male gang members range from 20 to 27. All of them are from El Salvador, and only one, who is believed to have fled the country, is not currently in police custody. Now, police uncovered the bodies of 17-year-old Edwin Escobar Mendez and 14-year-old Sergio Arita Triminio at Holmes Run Park in March 2017 after receiving a tip. And the 2 teens disappeared just weeks apart. So that's what the open borders are bringing into this country. You need to really pay attention to what MS-13 is doing. They are trafficking in drugs. They are exceptionally violent. And the open borders are just bringing them in. Now, the corporate media is still out there trying to push this idea that separating these kids from their families is bad. Having the families and the children detained together is bad. They just want them out there. They want to go back to catch and release. MSNBC actually came out with the claim that detained children will turn into Terminator-like characters who will seek vengeance. Okay, good reason to get them out of the country. But pushing this nonsense about trauma, who's responsible for the trauma? The parents are. The adults who stepped across that border without permission are responsible for whatever trauma happens to those kids. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not America's fault. We put the blame where the blame goes. People entering this country illegally. Now, over in Europe, we're starting to see a major pushback to the refugee crisis there. And apparently in Austria, they've got hundreds of Austrian soldiers and police officers and helicopters taking part in what are called migrant deterring drills. And it's a border protection exercise that simulated containing migrants. And there are concerns that neighboring Germany might begin to turn away new arrivals trying to cross their frontier. So Interior Minister Herbert Kickl of the far-right Freedom Party came on out and said, a state that in the worst case cannot protect its borders loses its credibility. And a lot of people are saying that. If you don't have secure borders, you don't have a nation. Trump even said it. Now, as you know, there's been a big issue with more of these ships coming over from Africa, and Italy stopped refusing them, and then Spain took one, and apparently there's been a very negative reaction on the ground there. Spain is now refusing to allow the next Lifeline rescue boat coming on in. And they declared basically Spain cannot become the sea rescue organization for all of Europe. So I think they've reached the breaking point there. Over in Italy, they're now having their municipal elections, and it's seeing massive gains for Salvini's anti-mass migration Lega party. It's just, it's growing. It's a groundswell. They've really had it. They want this to go away. They want the refugees stopped. In many cases, they want the refugees deported. The latest polls in Germany are showing that the Alternative for Germany party has hit record high popularity, and Merkel's ruling coalition has fallen below the 50% mark for the first time in its existence. Now, Thursday is the deadline for Merkel to save herself because there was no deal reached at the emergency immigration summit held over the weekend. She's running out of options. But her coalition is about to collapse, and she is about to be out of a job. Now, up in Sweden, things are changing there. You know, Sweden, very, very liberal, fully on board with open borders up to a point. It's also become the rape capital of the world here. Back in 2014, Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt's speech calling on Swedes to open their hearts to asylum seekers was well received. Now it's a lot more difficult, and the Swedish politicians are realizing they can't use that same rhetoric in the 2018 election. It's falling on deaf ears because the Swedes opened their hearts to the refugees, and the refugees came in, committed crimes, messed up the place, committed rapes. I think Sweden is one of the countries where polls are showing that the citizens want the refugees just deported. Just put them on a ship and send them back wherever they came from. Now, of course, Brussels is taking a different position. They're backing Macron's call for sanctions against any European Union nation that refuses to take in more of these refugees. And the EU is saying that patriotic nations must pay the price for refusing migrants. Apparently, they're taking the attitude that membership in the bloc obligates them to take in refugees. But it's obvious that we're seeing the rise of nationalism all over the European Union, which is viewed as a threat by EU. They created this mess themselves. Did they really actually think they were going to pour all of these millions of people from other parts of the world into the United States and Europe, and we were all going to hug each other and sing Kumbaya? As I've mentioned many, many times before, mass migration is a filtering process. You're not getting the best of the people from that source country. The people who've made it, the people who've got money, they're going to stay. What you get on the other end of that migration route are people who couldn't make it in their own country, people who don't have skill sets for work, people who are criminals fleeing prosecution, people carrying contagious diseases. And when George Soros and his buddies laid out this master plan, they didn't really think it all the way through. Clearly, there was a lack of foresight. And between that and the European Central Bank, I think the EU experiment is going to come to an end. Because I think when Brussels tries to impose more economic sanctions on the EU member states over this refugee crisis, I think that's when it's going to start tearing apart. All it's going to take is one country to say, we're out. Hard exit, no negotiation, we're gone. We're invoking our rights under the EU Charter to just get the heck out of Dodge. And that'll start a flood of them going. Meanwhile, the European Union is admitting, as a consequence of the Open Borders program, that jihadist terrorism has cost their economy hundreds of billions of euros. And they're talking about lost lives, injuries, damage to infrastructure. And of course, the fact that terrorism also harms trade, foreign direct investment, and especially tourism. So, again, a very foolishly thought out agenda here. Over in China, they have now blocked HBO after John Oliver on his program last week tonight compared Xi Jinping to Winnie the Pooh. And of course, Oliver was calling out China over human rights violations and other forms of propaganda to try and build public support for a Get China economic policy here. But apparently Chinese social media users use Winnie the Pooh memes to mock him ever since the removal of presidential term limits. And Xi Jinping is trying to rebrand himself, so he was not appreciative of John Oliver and basically just pulled the plug on HBO. Whether that's permanent or not remains to be seen. Getting on back to Sweden, and this comes under the category of the loony left. Sweden has passed a law that says there must be an explicit consent given for sex, meaning it has to actually get written down. Boy, that's going to kill the romantic moment, isn't it? And so somebody came on out with an app for the smartphone. There's an app for that. Are you willing to have sex with me? Yes. Enter code number, whatever. But according to Aftonbladet, which is a tabloid, the app is being criticized because it makes it harder for women to regret and have second thoughts and change their mind as things get going. That is just absolutely, absolutely absurd. Now, over in the, hang on a second, I had a little bit of a glitch. Story in the Daily Mail in Great Britain. There is a charity screening of the movie Zulu being shown at a film festival. It stars Sir Michael Caine. It was made in 1964. It's considered a classic. And it's going to be aired at Folkestone Silver Screen Cinema in Kent on Saturday to raise money for charity. But liberal snowflakes are already out there screaming that this movie can't be shown because it's racist. It's racist. It shows black people as savages with spears and shields. Well, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what did happen. So let's talk about our volcano here. Madame Pele has now eaten more than 576 homes. 894 families have filed for FEMA assistance. And as I mentioned, I think end of last week, FEMA has parked a couple of what they call barges, but they're basically these floating residential units about 10 miles off the coast of the Big Island to temporarily house some of these people. Now, one of the ways that volcanologists track what the volcano is doing are with what are called GPS stations. And it's simply a high-precision GPS dug into the ground that radios its readings to the volcano observatory or to wherever they're currently set up. And I think the volcano observatory is relocated to Hilo temporarily. And the idea is that as the land that the GPS is attached to moves up or down or sideways, they get a good, accurate map of it. And they've been using these GPS units to basically track the subsidence of that southern rift zone. But apparently, one of the GPS stations has now dropped into the crumbling Kilauea crater after a month of gradual decline. So they've lost that data point. It was identified as N pit, meaning the northern end of the pit. And it started moving downward in early May at the onset of the subsidence at Kilauea's summit. And today they lost radio contact with it. Now, Hawaii farmers, despite the lava and the VOG and the lays, are still trying to get back to their homes, not because they can get to their homes, but there's a lot of farming on the Big Island. In fact, to live on the Big Island, there are actually requirements coming out of the Bishop Trust that so much of the land be kept in agriculture. And so it's very common to see people who own these houses on the Big Island. They'll have something out back, like coffee plants, lychee nuts, bananas, papaya, and they will sell them at the local markets. And so a lot of these residents are going back there and try and recover some of their produce and save it. Because it will mean a little bit of money as they try and recover. And apparently a lot of them are sneaking back to their land because a lot of it's still closed off. Now, for a while there was a concern that Mauna Loa might be an issue. Now, if you're looking at a map of the Big Island, there are the two big volcanoes. The north one is Mauna Kea. That's where the observatories are. Mauna Loa is the big one to the south, and Kilauea is the one that's kind of nestled up to the south flank of Mauna Loa. But Mauna Loa was showing a lot of activity, but it has sort of quieted down which may suggest that there is, in fact, actually some kind of connection between Mauna Loa and Kilauea. But they've downgraded its alert status back to normal, so people living downwind, downflow from that crater can kind of relax. The same might not be true for the New England area, because scientists have discovered that there appears to be a huge mass of molten rock creeping upwards slowly between the nation's northeastern states, Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And it's basically a plume. And the idea is it could form volcanoes, possibly even a supervolcano, which is coming as a surprise to people living in that part of the world. But as the science of volcanology gets a little bit more sophisticated, they're discovering that there are a lot more volcanoes, supervolcanoes, volcanoes that don't have a trace on the surface. And they're very concerned about southern Italy, which of course is famous for Vesuvius. But LiDAR scans have shown traces of far more craters that have erupted in the past. So the Earth is rocking and rolling, and just letting us know that nature is still the boss, no matter what. All right, if you're living in Louisiana, they have discovered this brain-eating amoeba, and it's the third time this deadly organism has been found in the same district since 2015. And it's called Naegleria fowleri. It's a parasite which causes fatal brain swelling and tissue destruction. Was identified in Terrebonne water. That's where this problem is located. And all freshwater sources in the parish have been affected, including the drinking water, water in the bayous and pools, and water used for showers and bath. The fatality rate for those infected by the parasite is over 97%. According to the CDC. We're going to take another break for commercials. Do join us on the air, 800-313-9443. Oh, we have a caller waiting, and we'll be right back.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Many people write about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. My wife and I both use Extendivite and are very pleased with the results. It has helped to stabilize our blood pressure and to make both of us feel healthier. Good product and good buy. So far, so good. I've been taking Extendivite 3 times a day, only a short while now, but already I've noticed the circulation in my hands and feet improving. They tingle. I like the idea of taking something herbal rather than pills. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older, and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, and we're going to go right to the phones here. Joe in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Well, we got some small elections and primaries tonight. And what I really find interesting is how Trump is really turning the Republican Party into the Trump-Publican Party. I mean, he's got a 90% approval rate amongst Republicans. He's really got the neocons and the never-Trumpers on the run. I mean, they're finished as far as the Republican Party. I live in Tennessee, and we chase Corker out, and I see Flakes leaving. Lindsey Graham looks like a little poodle now. He's on Trump's leash down there in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just pretty happy to see what's going on. I mean, whether you like Trump or not, the neocons are proven maniac warmongers, globalists. So at least, I know a lot of your callers aren't too fond of Trump and all that. And I've always said, well, what we don't know with Trump beats what we know with the establishment Republicans. So in that regard, I'm thrilled, and it's really great to see. But I was going to ask you a question. I like what.
Before you move forward, I want to comment on something you said. I wouldn't consider that the neocons are on the run because Trump has brought so many of them into his administration, like John Bolton especially. And they're still in a position to do a great deal of influence along the pro-war path.
Well, I agree with you. I don't like Bolton either, but I mean, he didn't. He tried to interfere with the North Korea deal. He didn't. So he might be using Bolton as a good cop, bad cop. And same way, I mean, I don't like Munchkin or Muchin in there in the Secretary of Treasury, but look at the trade and the tariffs. I mean, he's definitely not acting as a globalist. Trump is, and if the neocons were running economic policy, there'd be no talk of tariffs or doing away with NAFTA or TPP. I mean, Trump's actions are definitely against most neocon policies, and that's the way I see it. He might have some neocons in his administration, and he might have done that to appease them while he slowly destroys them. I mean, that's what I see happening, and he's waiting for the midterms and more Trump-Publicans to get in positions of power, and then he'll be more consolidated and able to keep up this patriot agenda, and that's what I'm hoping. But
it would be nice, but I'm seeing Trump as proving himself to actually be a weak leader. He's easily manipulated. He's susceptible to flattery, and we're a year and a half into his first term in office. And while he's certainly keeping his campaign promises on immigration, I think he's mishandling the economy. I think he's getting some bad advice. There seems to be no slowing of the war agenda around the globe. In fact, we seem to be adding more and more nations to the list of countries to sneer at. And of course, we all wanted to see Hillary in prison. All right, well, listen, Joe, going to let you go here. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life, Extendivite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn.
And
Here
aloha.
is your host, Michael Rivero.
Sorry, I cut off my own introduction there. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And they've had a little bit of a whoopsie with an F-35. Apparently, this was at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort. And it happened all the way back in October of 2016. But for some reason, it's just coming out now, where they grounded this aircraft because of a midair fire caused by a faulty weapons bay bracket, and it rendered the aircraft unsafe to operate. And apparently, the cost to repair the damage from the fire was more than the aircraft cost, so they're not going to do it. Now, my concern with that is that when you make a weapons system, when you make a weapon, something that it should be of paramount importance is the ease of repair, because you're getting shot at out there. And one of the things that you would see on airplanes, ships, vehicles during World War II, they were designed to be repaired by people in the field. And today's high-tech aircraft just seem to be like one piece of damage is going to put it out of commission, which is what happened here. Now, the plane is not officially listed as lost yet. Apparently, this is why we're just hearing about it now. They're saying it might still be used as a trainer for maintenance or as a museum piece. But I guess it was such an embarrassment, they wanted it kept under wraps. Okay. All right, once again, we're getting warnings from over in Japan that the radioactive water being stored at the Fukushima power plant is approaching the limits. They have literally run out of room. Sometime you ought to take Google Earth and go on over to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, and you will see all of these giant storage bladders and tanks all over the place. The water treatment plant never worked out. The ice wall didn't work. And they don't know what to do with it. And by the way, Google Earth has this cool little function called the time slider. And if you look, there's this little icon with a clock with an arrow pointing counterclockwise. And you click that, and you have access to historical photos of the same exact area. And you can rewind it back quite a few years and just see over the time how all of these bladders and tanks just keep piling up, and they don't know what to do with it. Japanese officials have no plans to dispose of it. which means at some point it's just going to start running back into the Pacific Ocean again. Okay. Now, over on Mars, as you know, they're having a major dust storm, and they are impressive. They can cover the entire planet. And Curiosity sent back a selfie that it took of itself in the middle of the dust storm. And it took multiple pictures that they were able to edit together so you don't actually see the arm coming out to take the selfie. They've used that technique before. But there's obviously concern about the buildup of dust on the spacecraft itself. And of course, Opportunity, which relies on solar power rather than a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, has now shut down. And the flight controllers think that Opportunity is just waking up every once in a while to see if it's getting enough light on its solar panels to charge the batteries, at which point it will automatically switch itself back on. But if the dust storm lasts long enough, Opportunity's batteries could go completely dead, and there's no more waking up from that. So, bad times on the red planet, as it were. Now, Japan has a probe, the Hayabusa 2 spacecraft, and it's closing in on an asteroid ahead of a planned rendezvous just a few days from now. We reported, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, where the asteroid was now visible in the cameras. Now they're close enough where they're able to see rocks, geographical features, craters, and interestingly enough, it's not exactly round. It's kind of got like two pyramids stuck together, like a fluorite crystal. But at one point, they're going to circle it a few times, and then they're going to learn all kinds of new things. Okay, here's a disturbing statistic. This just came out today. According to the CDC, 1 out of every 36 children in the United States has autism. 1 out of every 36. In 1980, it was 1 in 10,000. There is obviously a crisis here, but it's being ignored. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. We're seeing all kinds of new illnesses sweeping our population. Peanut anaphylaxis, autism, Crohn's disease. I think it's time to start asking how many of these illnesses and conditions are side effects of prescription pharmaceuticals. And obviously the pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know that. They want you to just come back and buy another drug. But looking at these numbers, in 1980, 1 out of every 10,000 children had autism. Today it's 1 out of every 36. Now, the costs of taking care of these autistic children are mounting. It is becoming a huge expense for the nation as a whole. At some point, if this trend continues, we're going to reach a point where there are going to be so many autistic people, it's going to take the entire non-autistic population to take care of them. And at that point, our industry and our society collapses. Now, I'm hoping that Robert Kennedy Jr. is aware of this new CDC statistic. He's still out there writing articles about vaccine safety. The corporate media, of course, is totally ignoring him because corporate media has sold its soul to pharmaceutical advertising, which is very profitable. We see all those commercials all over the TV. Yes, new Wizzo cream, rub it where it hurts. And then there's that little voice at the end of the commercial going on about how use of this drug could lead to all kinds of problems like death. But it makes money, and that means it's okay. Over in Great Britain, the chief inspector of schools is accusing parents of trying to medicate away their children's hyperactive behavior. This is head of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, made the comments revealing that the use of Ritalin and other smart drugs has doubled in the past decade. There were nearly 1.5 million prescriptions for the drugs last year, compared with less than 700,000 10 years prior. Now, Dr. Tom Booth, who studied the DNA of Cheddar Man, is out there offering a cautionary tale about these ancestry websites that claim to reveal whether your ancestors were Viking or Saxon or Roman, and he says they're complete bunkum. And he says that any results from these websites from before 300 years ago are likely to be inaccurate. And he says these results that link to populations pre-1000 AD, basically everyone could have been an ancestor at that stage. You go back far enough, we're related to everybody. Everybody's related to everybody else. Plus, as you may be aware, these DNA testing websites do turn over copies of your DNA results for government files here. Now, this is a very, very bizarre story. This came out of Government Slaves here, and it actually happened a little while ago. But out in Joshua Tree National Park, there was this couple just out exploring the deserts. It's a very beautiful area. I've been there myself. And their ATV got a flat tire. And because they did not have a spare, they were traveling much slower than they would have if they'd had 4 properly inflated tires. So they're just trying to limp on back to where they can get the ATV tire fixed. Now, apparently on June 10th at about 11 p.m., they came face to face with federal agents who the couple said immediately opened fire on them. And in the hail of bullets, Denise was struck in the head and hand before the Bureau of Land Management agents ceased fire. Now, predictably, the police are telling a different story. The Riverside County Sheriff's Office is saying that the couple were in a restricted area and failed to heed Bureau of Land Management officer commands to stop. Now, here is my question for this. I wonder what the federal government is hiding out in Joshua Tree National Park and why any portion of the park would be off limits to the public. Why is there even a restricted area? And it does sound to me like the BLM agents shot first and asked questions later, because obviously if you're out there, you're on an ATV, you're not armed yourself. And if they come up and say, halt, you're going to halt. That's just common sense. Now, for all you gun enthusiasts out there, the new statistics are civilians now have 5.5 times more guns than all the governments combined on Earth. That's how popular personal firearm ownership has become. And apparently this is an issue that is driving millennials away from the Democratic Party. Because shooting is fun. And in a nation where it can be 20 minutes before you get a response to a 911 call, you have a right to defend your home. That's what the Second Amendment is all about here. All right, over in Minnesota, there's a group of parents, over 1,200 of them. They're suing to shut down Child Protective Services over what they're describing as legally kidnapping children. And apparently what's been going on is because Child Protective Services budget is dependent upon how many children are under their care, they're usually very eager to start taking kids away from their parents on the flimsiest of excuses. And apparently it's gotten really out of control over in Minnesota, and the parents are suing to basically stop it. Now, obviously, nobody wants to see a child being abused, but in some cases, the Child Protective Services are acting on hearsay, gossip, supposition, guesswork, because the goal is to get that kid, to get that revenue stream going on. Alrighty. Now then, as you know, below the equator, it is their winter. It's our summer, their winter. Did you know Australia actually celebrates 2 Christmases? They have one in December, but that's the middle of their summer. And so for all those traditionalists, in the middle of their winter, they'll have a second Christmas. There's a place up in the Blue Mountains that gets all decorated up, and you can go play in the snow, and it's a lot of fun. But they've been hit with an extreme cold front, and people are being warned of dangerous conditions along Australia's east. And the bad news is it looks like it's going to get colder. Now, here in the northern hemisphere, where we are in the middle of summer, just went through the solstice, it's snowing in Newfoundland. Now remember, when you are in the northern latitudes, you get more sunlight during the day. Newfoundland gets more sunlight during the day than we do here in Hawaii because we're close to the equator. So it should be very warm up there. But they got snow, which brings us to this article down here that came on out of Zero Hedge, and it's by Martin Armstrong. And it's basically saying there are 30 years of global warming forecasts, and they have all failed. And he's going on back to 1988, when then NASA scientist James Hansen started all this by testifying before the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, and tried to make the link between carbon dioxide and greenhouse effect and observed warming. And that was the start of this whole global warming hysteria, and everybody leapt on board, especially Al Gore, and said, oh yes, we can tell the people they're destroying the planet, and they'll pay us taxes to save the world, and they'll let us tell them what to do with their lives. And you need to watch out for some key phrases from people who are on TV. High degree of confidence. Thus and such, thus and such. High degree of confidence. Basically means they're guessing. They don't really know. Those are the same words used to invade Iraq. We have a high degree of confidence Saddam has nuclear weapons. So, why does anyone ever believe those in government? They can't even forecast the GDP accurately. They're fudging the numbers here. But yeah, anytime somebody says the science is settled or we have a high degree of confidence, it means they don't really know. They don't have the facts. They're just pushing an agenda here. Over in Akron, Ohio, you guys are going to love this one. Apparently, 2 Akron firefighters are on paid leave for making porn at the fire station. Now, the 2 firefighters are not assigned to the same station. They were known to be in a long-term relationship, but apparently they used one of the fire stations to make their own porn videos. Over at CERN, they've just started a major upgrade to boost the capacity of CERN's Giant Particle Smasher, the Large Hadron Collider. And the work involves heavy engineering at the 2 main sites in Switzerland and France, which are run by Europe's physics lab CERN, which sits right on the border between Switzerland and France. And this will allow it to operate at a much higher luminosity mode from where it was back just 2 years ago. So this major upgrade will improve the performance of the LHC by increasing the number of collisions in large experiments and boosting the probability of the discovery of new physics phenomenon. Well, it sounds really good. It sounds really good. But I have a concern, and I think it's a legitimate concern that nobody has really addressed. Now, particle physicists used to joke that studying atomic particles was like taking 2 mechanical watches and smashing them together and then try and figure out what the watches looked like from the gears and springs and levers and hands and stuff that flew on out. Well, you can take that analogy one step further. If you smash those clocks together hard enough, you might break individual teeth off the gears. You might break levers in two, and they'll fly out of the collision as discrete objects. But clearly, they were not discrete, independent objects prior to the collision. And so you have to raise the question as to whether the new particles they claim they're getting out of the Large Hadron Collider are actually a part of nature or artifacts of the experimental process itself. And frankly, I can't think of a way to solve that conundrum one way or the other. But they just bang away at their particle accelerators, and you know they've got funding to go on working, and they think they found the God particle, which tells you that the Large Hadron Collider is really just another device for communicating with the gods, like Stonehenge or the pyramids or the cathedrals and so forth. It's an expensive church. And all of this because of this insistence that we go on believing in the Big Bang and that supreme moment of creation by some divine force. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. Please join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and I'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter, blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining what's really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, as you know, the World Cup is still going on, coming up on the finals. And apparently the Australians lost to Peru in what is a very controversial decision where Peru was awarded a half goal, and there's a concern that somebody was offsides. So the arguments are starting on that one. But apparently the Swedes are having so much fun at the World Cup celebrations. The city has run out of beer. And this is Nizhny Novgorod wasn't quite prepared for the Swedish invasion. And we need a humanitarian drop of beer. Over in Portland, as you know, there is a group called Occupy ICE. And it's out there protesting the separation of children, the detaining of the immigrants, basically pushing the open borders agenda. And they've built up this huge, huge tent city. And apparently today they were trying to build a barricade. The police have now ordered them to disperse. And at one point, apparently, there was some pepper balls being fired at the people building the barricade. And the ICE protesters basically tried to tie the federal building's doors. So that's beginning to heat on up, and we may see an actual confrontation there. Okay. Ever wonder where the plastic you throw in the trash goes? Well, amazingly enough, that plastic, which is not recyclable, was actually being sent to China. China, for a fee, was accepting the world's trash, and now they've decided they need to stop. And China has banned the importation of plastic waste. And basically, they're talking about 110 million tons of plastic. That's a lot of plastic. Now, the ban went into effect December of last year, and the stockpiling trend figures to worsen. Now, I have an idea. Everyone's always talking about artificial intelligence and robotics. And the one area in which recycling has never worked out is the separating of the trash into what is recyclable and what is not, separating out the glass, separating out this, separating out that. And I think that would be a really good opportunity for a major city with a trash problem, such as New York, to basically set up an automated factory. And they pour the trash from the trash trucks in at one end, and it goes down this long conveyor belt, and these overhead robots are basically spotting specific things they're programmed to look for, and then drop them into a bin behind them. And that would improve the efficiency of recycling, because something does have to be done. There's no question about that. Now, not too long ago, China's Tiangong-1 space station made a fiery re-entry into the atmosphere. And people are starting to wonder if maybe China is about to bring down the Tiangong-2 because it's gone through some orbital maneuvers, which at one point brought it to an altitude of just 60 miles, which is where you're definitely entering the atmosphere. So it looks like what China is planning to do, unlike Tiangong-1, which just sort of came down wherever Isaac Newton said it was going to come on down, it looks like China is planning to have a controlled descent for Tiangong-2. Now, these were very early attempts at space stations by China. They're very small, and they're not being used anymore. And definitely getting the junk out of orbit would be a good idea. Now, these days, there are treaties that require satellites in Earth orbit, geosynchronous orbit, to have rocket motors with which to deorbit them and bring them down. But there's a lot of junk up there from before this requirement was made. There's still stuff up there from America's space program. I think Ed White's glove from Gemini is still up there. Explorer 1 is still up there. And there's a lot of stuff, and it does need to be cleaned on out. Now, I had an idea for that. And, of course, a lot of people are working on orbital trash collection. The Japanese had a test mission not too long ago where they were trailing a very long wire that they hoped would statically collect debris. Unfortunately, that broke. My idea was to fire a rocket straight up into the path of a known oncoming debris and just puff out a little CO2 bubble for it to slam into, just enough to bring it down into the atmosphere. But, you know, this could be something for one of Scaled Composites aircraft to do. I mean, right now, they can't get into orbit. All of the flights from space from that are suborbital. Maybe SpaceX could look at the problem. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. Do join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff, and it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down, and I got to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. It makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. And I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas. Yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we've got a phone caller on the line here. Bob from Behind Enemy Lines. Aloha, Bob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, aloha, Mike. I was going to leave you alone, but you sounded so desperate for callers, it sounded like you'd run out of a bit of news. So I might bring up this Maxine Swamp Waters. What do you think of that? Isn't that great? She's like sticking out her tongue, and she's like pushing cameras out of the way and inciting a riot. What do you think of it?
Well, obviously, I mean, I opened the whole show with it, and I think it was appallingly bad behavior.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part. I'm sorry, I tuned in late. I didn't actually hear that part. I'll have to go back to the rehash. But yeah, give me a Cliff Notes version.
Well, Cliff Notes version here. I mean, it was very inappropriate behavior. Members of Congress are calling for her resignation. Judicial Watch has filed an ethics complaint with the House against her. And, of course, Maxine realizes she stepped over the line. She was being interviewed on MSNBC and, you know, resorted to crocodile tears and saying, you know, focus on the children, focus on the children. No, the focus is on you, Maxine.
Oh, yeah, no, wasn't that that was a precious backpedal, didn't you? Oh, we all loved that, didn't we? These Democrats are winning the Republicans' election for them as we speak. You just get to see it here every day. It's almost laughable. I love this.
Yeah, it's actually true. I mean, the optics on this are so bad, and we're now getting, I think it was Splinter.com, which is owned by Univision. One of their articles was actually out there calling for domestic terrorism by the anti-Trump people.
I saw that.
Yeah, and so we're talking about, you know, edging up to actual violence here. Apparently, there was a report that one of the officials at the Department of Homeland Security found a burned, decapitated animal carcass on the porch of his home. So this is real brown shirt
that sounds
stuff.
like there's another person that needs prescribed medication, right? I'm saying that in satire. That's probably what caused it.
I don't think so. And, you know, there was
I'm
that.
sorry, Mike. Pardon my sense of humor. You know, as always, I really appreciate 96% of everything you give me, and I'll let you go today. But it sounded like you wanted somebody to talk to, so I figured I'd go in and throw
I had very few phone calls today. I figure everybody's out at the beach and everything, and on a slow news day, that's the problem. There's only so much to talk about. So anyway, thanks an awful lot for the phone
I'll do
call.
everything I can to help. I'm sorry I'm such a newbie with the call list. You know, I'll try to get this together, but I do appreciate you, and I'm glad to help you, you know, spend a few minutes of your time looking at this religious laughter we should all be just unhinging about right now. It's just great.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. It's an ugly situation. Maxine is just the prominent face of it, but we've been seeing this hysterical borderline violence coming from the liberal Democrats ever since Queen Hillary lost the election. All right, so people are already weighing in on the Supreme Court decision that came out earlier today, 5-4, upholding Trump's travel ban. And the Anti-Defamation League has come out and saying, we're outraged. We're outraged by this Supreme Court decision. And considering what Israel is doing in Gaza, it's a little hypocritical. It is a little hypocritical because obviously Israel bans travel from Gaza, you know, but when Trump bans travel from certain other countries, it's an outrage. It's an outrage to you here. Apparently, something like 17 states have filed lawsuits against Trump over the separation of children from their parents at the border. And the lawsuits are not going to go anywhere because it will be pointed out that this policy goes back to the Clinton years. But it's another way of trying to keep this issue in the media so the media is not paying attention to the fallout from the Inspector General's report. We're being contentized all over again. Now, the states are claiming that the separation of children from the families is limiting the state's ability to protect these children from abuse. Well, if you take a look at the photos that were being wagged all over the corporate media about how these children were being treated, clearly the states failed to curb the abuse. It's just another way of keeping this issue alive. They don't want you looking at the Inspector General's report. Now, interestingly enough, over in Europe, at the European Court of Human Rights, they have received about 60 applications from people living in Crimea who declare themselves citizens of the Russian Federation, and the ECHR accepted the applications, meaning that it looks like Europe is getting ready to say, yes, Crimea is in fact Russian, which will not make them any friends over here in the United States. And remember, the law under which Crimea was transferred to Ukraine, well, it was actually illegal under Soviet law at the time. So they've righted the wrong. Florida is announcing that they're going to start scanning every international traveler's face, and basically they say this is going to shorten the long lines at airline gates, improving security, and meeting an almost 15-year-old mandate from Congress. Now, Orlando International will be the first airport in the country to screen every international passenger using facial recognition technology. And CBP has been running biometric pilots, including facial recognition, at 13 airports across the country, but Orlando will be the first to use the system on all travelers. Now, this all goes back to 2004, when the Congress charged Customs and Border Protection with finding a way to apply biometric screening of all border crossings, including land, air, and sea. The agency has struggled to comply, citing difficulties with finding the right technology to improve security without adding significant delays, which means they haven't solved the false positive problem, which is a problem. And can you imagine the mess that's going to result when people who are coming on in with their proper passports and everything, and the electronic system confuses them for somebody else? The lines will get longer. All right, let's take a phone call. Ken in New York, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. I'd like to talk again about Joshua Tree for a moment.
Okay.
Didn't Rand Paul several years ago had asked where all these agencies got the authority to arm themselves? Did he not?
Yes, he did.
And I guess nothing was ever done about it. And the other question is, if this was a night attack, I am sure that they had the best night vision that money could buy. And you mean to tell me they couldn't see that they were not brandishing weapons?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. These BLM agents, it was 11 o'clock at night. I don't know what the moonlight condition was, but if they had third-generation night vision equipment, they would have been able to see these people perfectly clear.
Yes, and I'll bet they did. And if they could ever get them in court, I would like to make one of... If it were me, I would like to make a demand that says they must disarm themselves as part of the settlement.
Well, again, Rand Paul raised an issue. When did these agencies get the authority to be carrying arms and using them on the American people? Now, I know with the BATF, their charter was actually changed to make them a law enforcement. But we've seen agencies like the Forestry Service, and they're getting all this military-style weaponry and probably too little training on the safe handling of it, which may account for what happened at Joshua Tree. They just gave these BLM bozos guns, and they said they overreacted. They heard the vehicle coming on and said, we're under attack here.
You raised a very good question about what could be restricted.
Yeah, that's exactly it. First, what's the BLM doing there at 11 o'clock at night?
Well, the last thing I'd like to say is so much for... We'll call her the new version of Mad Max. Maxine Waters.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go, and we're going to go to... well, before we take this next phone call, this is following on my thing about the facial recognition. These automated systems, they're not perfect. They make mistakes. And a former head of NATO was denied electronic authorization to enter the United States because he once visited Iran. But he was there for the negotiations for the now defunct 2015 nuclear deal. And the computer said, oh, been to Iran, he's banned. Former head of NATO. Okay, let's take a phone call from Mateus in Canada. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous handing over too much authority to computers.
I agree.
The New World Order crazy agenda to just hand over more and more, including hunt and kill authority to the military robots and self-driving cars and all that, the law enforcement. And it's just insane.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Three things, globalist comment. So the New World Order folks, as you pointed out, are anti-culture because, like you said, that the people that are strongly educated and rooted in their background are more likely to resist an invasion because they have something to hold on to, whereas if we all forget where we are and who we are and where we came from, we're not going to fight so hard if they just drop all the borders and mix us all up and make us brown and poor, which is what they're trying to do before they kill us off and replace us with robots. So now China has been kind of selected as like to some degree by the globalists, the New World Order people, in certain ways. Like their success is being promoted. A lot of like tax incentives and legislation that encouraged industry to move over to China, and now we're allowing them to take over the Hollywood and buy up and put Chinese propaganda into the movies and everything. You got to understand, I'm coming from Vancouver, Canada, where it's like a 50% Chinese population, so it's really obvious right here. And it's basically just like a slow motion takeover. And so that wouldn't be really a problem. Like if back in the if the Greeks, Alexander the Great or Caesar was invading, at least he's bringing culture, bringing art, bringing science,
Excuse me. Okay, Caesar was Roman, not Greek. Alexander was Macedonian.
Ooh, good one. Bad one on me. So if either of those two parties were conquering you, it was horrible, but at least a few generations later, when everything settled down, at least they brought some culture and some art and some science and some philosophy and all that.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it's no fault of the Chinese, so it's not an insult, but unfortunately, they have this tragic event in history when Mao surgically removed a lot of the culture and the art, and by Mao literally murdering people that were artists and that were
but China's recovered from that. China's recovered a great deal from that, and they've sent out archaeologists to find things that Mao missed, and they've trained a new generation of artists. The Chinese culture is in good shape.
Didn't Mao kind of kill off the upper class to a large degree and left kind of like the less educated kind of lower class?
I think you're confusing with Pol Pot down in Cambodia, who killed off the educated class.
Oh, I think you're right. Oh, okay. So let me just get this straight once and for all. Did China have a purge of killing people wearing glasses and artists and intellectuals back with Mao? Did that happen? Or?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it was called the Cultural Revolution, and some people were thrown in prison for politically incorrect ideas. And you're right that there was a lot of book burning that was going on. And they went to great lengths, of course, to erase the common memory of the imperial Chinese court. But on the other hand, they could have burned down Forbidden City and did not. So Mao was preserving that part of their history and their culture.
It just seems like if you would have went to China, let's say 100 years ago, it seems like it would have been this really kind of rich cultural experience. It's very interesting, and it seems like if you went now, it seems like that's been removed to some degree. And that
it depends on where you go. It depends on where you go. Obviously, Shanghai and Macau are very modern urban cities. They're quite beautiful. If you want to see the older Chinese culture, there are definitely areas that you could go to, including Beijing and Forbidden City. They've got the world's largest movie studio there as well. They actually built an entire copy of Forbidden City. If you've ever seen a movie that takes place at Forbidden City, they're not shooting it in the Forbidden City. They're shooting it at this copy. This studio is owned by this Chinese billionaire who loves movies, and he runs this studio just because he wants to be part of the movies, and it's just huge. But they do have a culture. They're searching for their roots. They're bringing back the stories of Admiral Zheng He and how he was sailing all over the world's oceans long before Columbus was. And it was quite amazing. Some of the ships they developed, they came up with watertight compartments, appear to be the first ones that did that. There's a great deal to China if you go over and visit.
I'm just not seeing the culture coming here. Like the only culture here is to just drive a fancy car and to cut down trees.
Well, you should come here to Hawaii. You should come here to Hawaii because there's a lot of Chinese influence in our local culture and art as well. Now, it may be because the Chinese have been coming here for a lot longer than other parts on the U.S. mainland, because the importation of Chinese labor to basically work on the plantations goes back to after the Great Plagues and the exodus of the Hawaiians to see the rest of the world. So one of the reasons we're pan-racial is that workers were imported from all these different areas around the Pacific, China, Japan, Korea, and brought them all together. And they did bring their culture with them. And you can see it pretty much all over, especially Honolulu.
Okay, well, I'll just wrap that theory up then. If there's any truth to there being something missing of the culture that's being exported, that would be in line with the globalist agenda of the open borders, forget your history, forget your heritage. There's something about the Chinese current communist model that seems to be appealing and seems to be promoted.
Well, you need to understand, China is not interested in being part of the New World Order. They've been around in one form or another for 2,000 years. They're not ready to give up their independence. Neither is Russia. Anyway, listen, we're coming up on another commercial break. Mateus, I got to let you go here. And we got a couple more stories to get us out of the show after we come on back from these words. So stay tuned. And we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it. at aroutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and getting on back to the issue of global warming. Back in 2013, scientists announced they'd found the lowest temperature on Earth's surface in what's called the supercold area of Antarctica's ice sheet, which Al Gore tells us is warming. And that temperature was minus 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, the record did not stand for long because they've just discovered it's gotten colder, and it's now at minus 148 degrees Fahrenheit. Gosh darn, that human-caused global warming. Now, researchers have worked out a way where they can use this battery in your smartphone to reveal what you type or even possibly read on the phone. And to do this, they implanted a microcontroller into a phone's battery to record power flowing both in and out of the device. Then they used an AI to match power flows with specific key strokes. The technique could allow hackers to record your passwords as well as monitor your most visited websites. And the attack requires the smartphone to be in use and powered by the battery rather than on charge. Well, this is not really going to be much of an issue for iPhone users, obviously, because our phones come with the battery inside and there's no way to change it without taking it back to Apple. For Android devices with replaceable batteries, yeah, that could be a bit of a problem. But I think what we're dealing with here, like the immigration, is that we're not addressing the actual core problem, which is a violation of law and enforcement. Now, earlier I was talking about these NSA towers in 8 American cities. If anybody should be in a position to discover the cyber criminals and the hackers, the black hat hackers, it should be the NSA. Which means either the NSA is complicit with all this cybercrime that's going on, had to pay for those buildings somehow, or they're really incompetent and they're just raking in the dough with this claim that they can see and hear everything, but they're not really doing it. Apparently, on Nintendo Switch, there's a game, Super Mario Odyssey, and hackers have found a way to drop pornographic images into this game, which is supposed to be a family game. And experts believe the hackers have gained access to a piece of software used by the creators of the game, which has unlocked options that are usually hidden from public view. And they've used this tool to override the cartoon avatars that normally appear on the balloons and instead insert porn. Now, not seeing a way to actually make money on any of this, this is clearly malice. Meanwhile, there's a new startup which is looking at a whole new approach to fusion energy involving a deuterium beam fired at a tritium target, which gets away from needing to super compress the the fusing material in powerful magnets, like the tokamak, or superheating them with lasers. And they're thinking this could actually be working in the very, very near future. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. And please take what you learn here and share it with everybody, especially what Maxine Waters did and about all these hyper-hysterical, potentially violent liberal Democrats that are out there. So have yourself a good evening. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha, America.
Yeah.